Casual Magic has been sponsored by Quiver, maker of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine deck holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their website for 10% off your order. We're also sponsored by Architect, the premier site for hosting your decks on the internet. I love them and they love me, and it seems like a good reason for you to use them. You can also support Casual Magic directly by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Architect and Quiver and by my patrons at patreon.com/ShivamB. And today, I'm actually really excited because I have a third Australian on the show. Aaron, the owner, the boss of Good Games Morley, which is the store down in Perth on the western side of Australia, which has also been doing all of those really hilarious short form videos that like Gavin Verhey's been posting like regularly that just have all of us dying. And so I was like, oh man. And then Anthony Lee, who I spoke to, was also like, hey, you should talk to those guys. And I'm like, and then you reached out to me and I was like, oh, look, my job has suddenly become much, much easier. So thank you so much for joining me, Aaron. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I feel funny about reaching out first, but I was like, I'd listened to his one and then Tom Lapilli's one and thought there were just such good things. I wanted to put my name out there, you know.
You know what, man? It's like, I really, really enjoyed both of those episodes quite a bit. Like, I've done like a million of these things now. And one thing is that you learn very quickly that there are episodes that the audience likes, and then there's episodes that I personally like, and they don't always match up. But I really enjoyed, like, Anthony's such a lovely, pleasant guy to talk to. And Tom is just like a genius, like designed to your genius. So I was like, oh my God, I want to like, I recorded one more episode afterwards that hasn't come out yet as of our recording, but would have come out by the time people heard this, with Eduardo Sachkovic, where I asked him to break down what it's like to actually teach somebody how to do limited for a pro tour. And it's like, it was like taking a class for one.
Yeah.
And I was just like enthralled the whole time.
That's why I love your podcast so much, because you really cover the gamut of like the Vorthos stuff, talking about the story and the like an individual card for ages, and then be like, I made Modern. I am the man who created Modern, or I'm at the World Championship. Or
I can't believe I forgot to just ask Tom about Modern at all. Like, we were so busy talking about freaking Arch Enemy.
Yeah, Arch Enemy chat. That's what I'm about.
Literally, he drops at the end of the podcast. Oh yeah, I created Modern. I'm like, buddy, we could have had an hour, 3 hours. What do you? It turns out he also lives very close to me, so hopefully we're going to get to hang out and play some games.
Oh, you can play some Arch Enemy finally.
Somehow I don't think you want
make it happen. Make it happen, Shivam.
But before I get started with you, though, I will just want to update the audience that this is my first recording post Gen Con. And I went to Gen Con for 4 days in Indianapolis. I sat and I played something like 40 or 50 board games. Like, my wife and kid were there with me for the first time. And so like we basically went booth to booth and sat down and played every possible demo we could. And it was funny because I would turn a corner, people would just run into me and then be like, hey, holy crap, you're Shivam. Oh my God. And I'm like, yes, are you okay? Let me pick you up off the ground. One dude was like, I just spent a 5 or 6 hour drive from Chicago to here listening to only your episode and I'm like, wow, that's insane. Thank you so much. I love that. My wife doesn't want to hear me that much. I'm like, down. Like,
she doesn't listen to the podcast?
But no, are you kidding? She listened to it through the walls. It's like, that's kind of enough for her. I mean, once in a while I'd be like, you need to listen to this one. It was good. But she's okay with letting me have magic be my thing.
Yeah. I just only just taught my my girlfriend how to play on the weekend with the Bloomborough stuff, and she really enjoyed it. But then I was like, "Do you want to play again?" She's like, "Let's jam something else next." I was like, "Yep, right on." It's like there's a shorter.
I see.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, my wife knows how to play, and like she liked to play when we used to play Duels of the Planeswalkers on Xbox or whatever. And if I need like somebody to test a deck against, she knows enough to be able to like at least help me like, have somebody
Oh,
to play
that's so
against.
good.
But otherwise it's like, why don't we play Splendor
Oh, I
instead
love
or
Splendor as
something,
well.
right? It's
I'm
so
really
good.
jealous
It's
of
so
that
good.
Gen Con thing as well because since my most recent foray getting back into playing Magic more as my main hobby game, it was board games for years. So yeah, I'd love to hear
Yeah.
what sort of cool stuff you played.
Well, yeah, like basically, like I went to Gen Con for two. Like everybody's like, "Oh, are you going to bring Magic decks to Gen Con?" I'm like, "No, buddy, I'm bringing my family." So I'm going to Gen Con for Dragonlance, and I'm going to Gen Con for board games, and literally nothing else. And it turned out to be totally worth it. So yeah, I guess you know what? Since you asked, and since it's my show, I'm going to self-indulge myself and tell you about what I ended up playing. So
Please,
first thing I did was there's a.
please tell me,
Oh yeah, yeah. No, so there's a designer named Rainier Knizia, who's like one of the great game designers,
Dr. Kaninsky.
and
Yep.
he created this thing called he created this thing called My City, and I ended up playing this version called My City Roll, where you basically sit and roll 3 dice, and you have graph paper, and you're drawing out like these cities based on these blocks these designs that you roll on the dice, and it's got it's a weird game in that it's got a story that as you're building your city and you go through the chapters, suddenly your roles make a difference. Suddenly having different buildings next to each other makes have points. And it feels almost like you're playing a pocket sim city on a pad of graph paper. And it's fast and quick and super delightful and super fun. Um, and like I played a game called Belrati, which is like one of the hot games of this year. It's basically you're playing it's a cooperative game based on a museum where there's one person who or like there's some amount of people who are the judge or like the museum curator and some people who are the artist, and you're trying to like the museum curators put out 2 cards which could be anything from like a broom or a witch's hat or a taco or tire, whatever it is, and then the artists have cards in their hands and they play them down to try to match your theme.
Hmm.
But there's a an art forger named Belrati who takes cards off the top and throws them down, and you shuffle them down and then flip them over. And the judge has to decide which ones are the real cards and which ones are the forgeries, and only put the real ones in
Oh,
because the forgeries
that's
obviously get
so
points
good.
for the
Yeah,
faker.
that's
And
awesome.
you don't know. It's like what the hell? There was this one game where you had like these big like A1 size pictures, and you would grab them and you would try to tell stories, and people would try to figure out which pictures was yours or
Oh,
not.
Dixit or
But
Mysterium. Yeah.
yes, it's a lot like
Hmm.
Dixit. It's got a lot of Dixit vibes to it, but it was hella fun and really fast and very
Oh, I
cute
love
because you're like,
games like that where it's like the
oh yeah,
whole emergent gameplay comes from how people
yeah,
interpret
exactly,
art or your clue or
right. Like for instance, I had one which was like a microwave, and so the other people put down things like utensils or whatever, but then one of the pirated cards ended up being like a microwavable meal or something, and I was like,
yeah.
no, god damn it, they're gonna pick the wrong one. But yeah, it was super fun. And then I played a game called Oh My Pigeons, which is this really hilarious party game where you got these little pigeons. You're basically there's a pool of pigeons in the middle. You've all got benches. You're rolling dice to try to grab, and you're playing cards which say like, grab 4 pigeons from the pool and put them onto your bench, or take everybody's bench and move them to the left or whatever. It's just one of those very silly party games, very fun to play with little kids, and the art is so adorable. So I was like super excited about that. Um,
Sounds so good.
and there's this company called
I'm
Oh yeah,
so
dude.
jealous. It's crazy. I just love these
Dude, it was
games.
literally 40 hours of board games. It
Oh,
was the greatest.
that's the dream.
There's this Japanese company called Oink,
Love
which
Oink.
makes these tiny pocket-sized games. And they made one called Moving Wild, which is a brand new game they came up with this time, which is basically you're making a zoo, and you've got like all these animals and all these terrains, and certain animals can't go in certain terrains, and certain terrains can't go with certain animals, and certain animals will eat each other. It's sort of like the wolf, the sack of grain, and the duck on
Oh
you're
yeah,
trying to get the boat to the
the
other
logic.
side,
Yeah.
but it's a tile laying game like
Oh,
that.
that's so
So it's
cool.
it's really fun. You can play it from 1 to 4 players. Is great. And then there's a game called Deducto with duck in the
Oh
middle.
yeah,
So
of
what you
course.
is like you've got these little animals, and they've got like fake glasses or a mustache or a hat, and they're standing in front of a backdrop which is like a park or a desert or like the tundra or something, and you have a card that is faced the rest of the players, so like Hanabi, so you
Oh yeah.
can't see it, but that is your suspect, and you have your hand, and you have to flip over cards in your hand and say, do these cards have any matches? And then the other people can only say yes or no if one of the three components on there
So you're
matches.
slowly
And then you put it into
deducing
the yes pile or
what
the
your
no
little
pile.
animal looks like.
Exactly.
That's so clever.
You're deducting, and you're trying to figure out which of these like sneaky cats with mustaches is the guy you're trying to catch. It is adorable and very fast and very fun.
Oh, so good.
And then there was a game called. Sorry, you asked, and I bought a lot of games, but there was a game called Rebel Princess, which I ended up picking up. Which, if you haven't heard of, is amazing. If you've ever played like Hearts or Spades or anything, it's basically a trick-taking game with a deck of cards.
Yep.
But one of the suits in the card are, you're basically playing a princess who doesn't want to get married. And one of the suits is all the Prince Charmings. And those are like if you collect all of them, or if you collect any of them, you get negative points, or you get points and you lose points bad way. It is really got an interesting twist of like, what if you played Hearts but with superpowers and like the ability to mess with cards and change the trump suits and things. It was really fast and really funny and really adorably drawn.
We played one similar called Black Spy. I don't know if you ever played that. Z-Man used to put out these really great small box games, and then there was like Parade and
Z-Man.
Arboretum, and Black Spy was one.
Yes, I played Arboretum.
And Black Spy was one that was like that, where it was like Hearts, where you could shoot the moon and get all of the black ones, but all of the
exactly like that. Yeah,
we loved that game. It was really mean.
Yeah, then you should play Rebel Princess. It is the same vein, but really cute. And then there was a game called Skyrocket, which Floodgate put out, which is hella cool. You've got these hourglasses, and they're all different colors, and they're all going down from like, they're ticking down, and you have to play cards in order to flip them over to keep them from blowing up. And you also, there's one hourglass which is set aside that you're trying to get through a goal by getting to flip over 3 times. But if you keep focusing on that, the other hourglasses blow up, and if you lose 2 hourglasses, you die. So we played it with like 6 people, and it was just throwing cards down and yelling about, oh no, the yellow one's gonna flip, quick, flip it. And then there's like tactical waiting until it's just about to run out, and then you flip it over. It was fun as hell.
That's so good.
Yeah, and then the last one I'm going to talk about is a game called Finest Fish, because I got a couple other games, but I didn't play them. I just bought them because my wife got to demo them. But this game, imagine if you're playing Splendor or another game where you're buying, like, you have like a win condition and you're trying to buy like colored pieces to do it, except you're putting the scales on koi fish. So it is beautiful. It is stunningly gorgeous. And you're building like the scales of these modeled goldfish. And I was like, damn, you took my favorite game mechanic and then put it on the most gorgeous art I've seen.
I think there's something to be said about those games where it's like a classic mechanic, but then they do the aesthetics and the tactile feel of the pieces better than any other game's done.
I love it.
How much better is Splendor because it has those weighted poker chips as the things rather than bits of cardboard or whatever?
Just plastic, like exactly that. It's got like heft to it. It's got like, there's something about tactility. That's why you shell out for the bonus version of the games to have the wooden pieces instead of just the cardboard ones. Because like, come on, man, having a meeple is cool.
Cool. One of the very first board games I bought was Agricola. And I still have the old one. This is from 15 years ago now, where the animals and the food and everything were just cubes. And now the version now is like animeeples and wheat meeples and oven meeples and all this stuff. And I'm still playing with my colored cubes version. It's very sad.
It's like, do you ever remember? It's like Risk, right? Like the old days of Risk were just like, the units were just triangles, or little plastic things, and now they're like cannons and soldiers and whatever. Like they actually have actual models running around, and it's like, man, back in my day, we just had like thumbtacks.
We had to imagine the soldiers back in the day,
But that's enough about 20 minutes. That's enough about me. But Gen Con was amazing, and I'm grateful to all of you that I got to meet there. It was so cool to see everybody and run into people, and like. I got to meet a lot of really cool new people, and I got to meet all my artist friends again, which is always fun. But I'm talking to somebody who doesn't get to go to Gen Con because you're at literally the farthest place in the universe from everything.
Couldn't be further away.
So, Aaron, the reason I wanted to talk to you and why I'm glad you reached out is because Magic in places that are not mainstream America is always fascinating to me because it's so hard to get get cards there. They're also expensive, and like especially like places like Brazil or the Philippines or you know non-standard, if I put in quotes, like what I mean, like places where you have to work to get cards, and like Perth is far. It is far from everything. I'd imagine you have trouble getting stuff from the rest of Australia, let alone America.
There is something to be said about this. Is not sponsored by Wizards at all, but there is something to be said that I've been running game stores for over 10 years now. We have missed only one pre-release shipped to us on time to run it in line with the rest of the world, and that was Ikoria.
That's awesome.
And we all know what was
Fancy
happening
that.
around then. So, and even then, it was only delayed by a week, which is crazy. But I've always thought that
it was delayed in the States by a month.
Yeah, we got
something.
it earlier than the rest of the world, I think, because we're lucky in that we're in the Asia Pacific region. So at least with shipping, we have Southeast Asian, Japan's distribution lines.
Right.
But the fact that everything has to come months before on the boat, I think, to Sydney or Melbourne or Adelaide, and then fly or road to us. I'm really surprised that there's
they don't just ship directly to you guys.
No, and we have a huge port here as well, but it's just a logistical where all the supplies.
It's probably just easier to just drop it there and let it
be distributed from
That's crazy,
yeah. But I am surprised that we get things as on time as we do, considering the logistics of it. But
yeah, so what's it like owning a game store in this side of Australia?
Well, very interestingly,
like, are you from there originally?
I'm English, but I moved here when I was like 11 or 12.
So your accent is like frozen.
It's a little, yeah, it's a little of both. I still say like yogurt and some weird and dancing and stuff like that. That everyone makes fun of me constantly. But we got into Magic just after university here. Do you say uni over in the US?
We know what uni means, but we don't say it.
So we got into it.
That is definitely a Commonwealth thing.
So we got into it just after uni, and we were playing with boxes of cards that we bought on eBay, and we were like, we heard rumors that they play tournaments for this game, and in Perth at that time there was one store in the whole of Perth, which is like 2 million population, that sold Magic stuff and ran these events.
Really?
Yeah, like there was nowhere. Maybe you could buy it from some, but even the video game stores didn't hold like random boosters and stuff back then. So this is like 2010, 2009, 2010.
That's relatively recent.
Yeah, too. So we would go down and play drafts in this basement store in the middle of town, and there were 16 people there who were really coming down every week and playing Friday Night Magic and doing draft and everything. And we're like, how is this not bigger? Like, this game is so good. We try to get into the PTQ scene and all that. And then I started judging because the guy who was judging the tournaments there was leaving and there was no one else that could run it. And so I was like, I'll just learn how to do it. I like the rules, and I was playing a bit of Magic Online. So I thought I'd give it a go, because I really like the rules intricacies and rules advisory stuff. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of that part of the game as well. And so I started running tournaments down there, judging and playing at the same time. So I was like leveling up my draft game and my judging game. So running like 24.
I feel like that's not necessarily kosher. But
no, it was on the in the gray area at the time. But I'd get other people to do judge calls if it was in my game, you know. I wouldn't be like, you're disqualified.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, judge, yes,
I'm here.
Here, let me see your hand.
And then I played a guy in a draft final there once, and he said, after I beat him, he was like, we need someone to run tournaments for us at this new store that we're opening up. in Perth, and that ended up being the owner of the first Good Games store, which is like a franchise from Sydney that's all over Australia now. They have like 40 stores, I think, across the world. There's a couple in the US, but mostly in Australia. And so they were bringing the franchise over here for the first time with an independent owner, and that's how I started working for them. I started doing tournament organizing and.
So is the Morley part the location?
So Morley was one that came up a couple of years ago because a guy was selling one of his franchises, because there's 4 in Western Australia now, and a guy was selling one of his franchises like 4 years ago, and then I bought into the one that was kind of going to go out of business with one of the other guys. So there was like $1,000 of stock in the store, which is like 3 booster boxes worth of stuff. And we were like, we'll try turn it around. And this was, it was 5 years ago, 2019. And then somehow managed to survive through COVID.
The best time to start a game store.
But we got hit with of all of the horrible, negative, obvious impacts that happened with it. We got the end of people being stuck at home and needing things to do, spending time with their family, and the kind of community aspect of it.
Yeah.
So we sold a lot of board games, puzzles, and then Ikoria was like, I think we because we got it and nowhere else in the world was getting it on time, that was a big boon for us, and that was actually a little stepping stone for us to reach where we are now.
I've spoken to folks at Wizard of the Coast who were telling me that Ikoria was, up until very recent, up until like Lord of the Rings, Ikoria was like the best-selling set of all time. Wow. Because people were stuck at home and they were like buying crates of Magic cards because they're like, look, I'm potted with these group of people who are in my apartment or in my house or whatever. We got nothing to do, so we might as well just draft or I'll just stockpile a couple boxes because COVID will be over in a week or 3, right? It'll be fine. And then it's like a week or 3 becomes 3 months, becomes a year, and suddenly everybody's just got piles of Ikoria at home. And that set is a real messy set.
I just Zenith flaring
one of my
people
favorites,
for 20.
And trying to figure out mutate rules. Yeah, let's go.
But like, there was another interesting element of that, which was that when people were cooped up inside, not going to work, working from home, people really, this is my perception of it from people coming in and spending money on hobby stuff in the store, a lot of people kind of reconfigured what they found important and like took that time off to be like, oh, I miss playing Pokemon cards. Like that makes me feel nostalgic and happy. And I'm going to invest in some of this stuff rather than crypto or whatever, because I don't know if you remember that guy that was buying all the Pokemon like Charizard old boxes and opening $500,000 Charizards on YouTube. So we just sold all of our Pokemon stuff because people just wanted that nostalgia, had something comforting and nice for them, you know.
And all of us are now in our 30s with money. So
yeah, the disposable income could go directly into that.
Let me tell you, it became really frustrating for someone like me who's trying to get a full set of like inventions to be like, oh, suddenly all the things that were not inexpensive, but not like turbo expensive are suddenly turbo expensive, you know, because like, oh yeah, all these people are just buying up all the bling. And I'm like, please stop. I'm still like 4 away. Anyways, that being notwithstanding, so yeah, like that's actually a fascinating time to actually be in the business of like dealing with Magic in like the community. And like, it turned out like Commander and Spell Table ended up saving Magic during that year because suddenly people could still play with their friends over webcams. People could play non-sanctioned chill ass Magic with, you know, just like Commanders. And I think that's also a big part of why Commander just suddenly, like Commander had been skyrocketing, but that really just gave it like, you know, propane and just launched it to Jupiter.
And being in the store and someone that used to play semi-competitively, and now I run like a store that mostly does Commander, like it's just what people buy and want to buy cards for. It's so interesting seeing that COVID thing where they shut down the Pro Tour, turned it into the Mythic Championship, the dream was dead for people who wanted to, grind at local events, and you can't like make the pro league, the mythic league, mythic championship,
It was
the MPL.
yes, the
Yeah.
MPL, the Magic Players League, Pro League,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah, it was not good, and because we would go fly to Grand Prix and all this kind of stuff, and so now we're like, oh, that's dead, which killed off Standard because that's what got people into playing Standard. It really hurt Modern and all these competitive formats that you have to pay money to play to chase the dream. But then when it was replaced,
but if there's no dream to chase, who cares?
But then Commander coming out and everyone being like, oh, this is why Magic is good. Like it's the community, it's the
it's a laughing,
yeah, and creativity and building a cats with swords deck or whatever,
Well, it's what got me is like when we all started. Well, when I started playing Magic back in 1994 or whatever it is, we used to sit and play with our buddies, multiplayer or single player, whoever, just on the floor of our schools or on the sidewalks, and we would be playing semi-seriously, but it would be mainly just to thrash each other with whatever silly thing we've got. And Commander just feels like Magic does when you first start. Before, like, that's kind of why I rail so much against optimization, because I'm like, yeah, we can all get the best cards and put them into decks, but the real spirit of it is to be a child again and be like, look, isn't this the coolest dumb thing ever? Like, but I mean, it's Commander. The problem is now that all other competitive means of Magic are gone, everybody is playing Commander, which means Commander has to be everything for everybody, which means that means that competitive Commander exists. And I'm like,
and the thing that we struggle with the most with running events for that in store is that you run we run 2 Commander events a week, on Wednesdays and Fridays. And then we had some people be like, oh, would you like to run CEDH on those days? And we go, not really, because it just dilutes the pool. And then if someone is playing in the wrong pod, they get beat on turn 3 and they've played 2 tap lands and they die, and that's not very fun for anyone. But then people don't understand the social contract of my deck is at 8 out of 10 power level and I'm playing against a table of 3 people who are playing precons to go easy. So then we had to be like, okay, so there's no prizes for winning more, and there's no incentive for beating people up, or like a point system for one-shotting people or anything. So we started implementing this voting system where you vote for your favorite player at the table, and they get the promos instead of whoever. If you combo off in a
that's
fun
the thing.
way.
Like, exactly that. We have, and like the Commander RC and the CAG and stuff, we have definitely encouraged people to incentivize like who's got the coolest deck or who did the coolest player, like rather than last man standing, more like who made my 2 hours here the most enjoyable. Right. Like, and that's, it's sometimes a little hard to do that because obviously in LGS, you might not necessarily know everybody. You might not have like incentive to want to give that guy promos or something, but it also encourages community building. It also encourages like camaraderie. And that's kind of what we want to do. It's like, I don't want Commander to become like the Pro Tour, which I love the Pro Tour. I watch it all religiously. I talk to pros all the time, but Pro Tour where it's just stone faced, silent people play Magic, pick up their cards and leave. I don't want that. I want Commander to be like giggle fun time,
and
right?
Like, and it's so great. Like,
big plays.
It's why Magic is the greatest game in the world, because it's 500 games in one. I love watching the elite Pro Tour players play silently and barely even celebrate when they win, because stoic is like your mental game all the way down.
Like when Reed Duke wins the Pro Tour and he's just de-sideboarding because he's like, oh,
he doesn't even look excited about it.
Yeah, and I'm like, bro, you literally just got your life dream, and he's just like, yeah, but this third Liliana should be.
Like, I don't want to get deck checked on the way out, But then, everything from that all the way down to watching 2 people play their very first game with 2 jumpstart packs that they shuffle together is like, the game is the same all the way from bottom to top. It's incredible, really.
It's unbelievable to me that they built a system that is so robust that it can be like 12 different games, and they still put out 1,000 cards here,
Yeah,
and somehow they have
and
not
there's
killed
20
themselves.
clone games that are doing various things within the same resource system, and they're all kind of good as
Yeah.
well. It's amazing.
It's in like, I mean, like, I just think about today even, like, there's Commander, there's Oathbreaker, there's CDH, there's, pre-modern, there's modern, there's all those core standard formats, there's
Yeah.
Camlander, there's Australian do people play Australian Highlander by you?
We have
The 7-point
7
Highlander
point
or whatever it is?
is our most popular vintage format in store. We run that fortnightly in between pauper tournaments. So there's like people with $15,000 decks, and then people with $20 decks, alternating which weeks they play.
That's, I mean, like, it's amazing to me that like Canadian Highlander has taken off and become this very kind of globally spread thing, but Aus Highlander, which is also a really fun way to play, has kind of still stayed a local format. But I like that it exists and has a community
it's
and
like
thriving.
Australian rules football, if you've ever seen that. Yeah,
Exactly.
We love it here, and it's never going to leave.
Nobody else,
no one else likes it.
Not even a little bit. Well, it's like French Duel Commander, which is just like, it's the
where
most
Sol Ring is banned,
very focused
as it
on,
should be, it should be.
The ban list in that feels very much like somebody got very angry at someone beating them a few times, and here's a ban list for this. But like, Midgo just put it on there as the new one-on-one Duel Commander, so we'll see how that goes. Like, I think that format rules, but it's also very French.
It's very French, yeah. It's very brass tacks.
Yeah. It's cool though. So, gosh, like, now I'm trying to, like, do I want to ask you Stora questions or do I want to ask you Magic questions? Tell me about these videos you guys have been making, because they're so funny and they're so good, and your staff is really game for this, which is a delight.
So we started making. We were like, let's do some TikTok content or put on Reels or whatever, just because to plug a pre-release or something. We'd tell everyone about the new pack that's coming out or something, and then myself, Violet, and Ricky, who are the main ones who started doing the scripts, we hang out outside of work. We're friends through the music scene and board game scene and everything as well. So we're all theater kids. Obviously, we all did high school drama. So we all have that, making each other laugh and all that sort of thing, and thinking of funny skits or whatever to do. And we have a chat where we send each other funny skits and memes and stuff. And working in a card store by itself is so absurd at its core that you don't have to write. Honestly, we don't have to write a lot of the scripts, because they are actual interactions with people that happen in the store. People spelling out, like Skitherix the Blight Dragon was what our first sketch was based on. Someone being like SKITHRXKXTSK, and you're just like, oh my god, like, I can't. These aren't words.
Scrabble bag poured out.
Skitherix the Blight Dragon.
I mean, dude, there have been a lot of friggin' commanders who've come out which really do feel like someone just threw Scrabble bag at the table and just said, X's, let's go.
Yeah, X,
like,
G, K, K, K.
Yeah, it's like
Zinda
like,
Split,
okay,
and for Bilthup is like a travesty.
Now, see, what we need the crossover between you guys and Rebels LGS series, which would be super, super funny. Well, I should propose that to her. She should fly to Australia and work with you guys.
Rebel sent us a message to do a collab, but we haven't figured out a script yet.
Yeah, that would be super
great. Yeah.
That would be so cool. Yeah, Rebel's one of my favorite people, and it's funny as hell, because like, we met because she called me a garbage C-list celebrity with bad opinions on Commander, and I was like, we should be best friends.
I also like people putting me in my place. Yeah, telling me what telling me what I really am.
So in the decade or so that you've been doing this, What have you noticed about the community? Like, can you tell me what it's like? Has it changed, or like? I know. I mean, obviously, we both know the commander is the biggest thing going, but like, what does that really mean in terms of like your customers? Like, have they changed what they buy or how they act?
Yeah, so in terms of the store, when I first started running the one, it was a Good Game store in St James. Good Games St James was the first one in Perth, which is now the Cannington store, which is the one that I managed for a while, and before moving to Morley like full time. The crowd at St James was standard players. It was we ran a 100-person PTQ at this tiny store back when the invite used to like fly you to Dublin or
Anywhere.
the US or Japan or wherever, and we had 100 people packed into that store. I think it was extended or modern. It was, but I think Bogles won, so whatever that format was, and that was the driving force of people buying cards in the state. So the competitive scene, the Pro Tour dream, flying to Grand Prix, because especially from Perth as well, we would fly to Singapore, Malaysia, um, Indonesia, Philippines, Sydney, Melbourne to play Grand Prix because there was nowhere to qualify or do anything in Perth. We got one PTQ every 18 months, 2 years if we were lucky. And
That's crazy.
yeah, and so we were starved for it, and we were trying to play Magic online and all this kind of stuff, but the infrastructure wasn't there, and so we'd spend thousands and thousands of dollars to go to a public 700-person Grand Prix and go
Jeez.
03 and then go home with nothing, So
Oh.
the
Sometimes I feel like I'm spoiled for choice because of the fact that, like, I live half an hour away from Channel Fireball's former
yeah, and when you were
headquarters.
like 8
So, like,
hours
all through
from
the 90s.
LA, I was like, what? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like, Channel Fireball's headquarters used to be, like, right here before they moved to
mm,
Vegas and stopped being a thing
mm,
that mattered, but their game center, which is, like, where all the, LSVs of the world play, all the other stores around here would be like have communities of people who wanted to be good enough to be able to go play at
yeah,
CFB because like they're the big boss, right? And so it was a lot of spikes and a lot of very
mm,
hardcore players, and the Bay Area's got a very thriving scene. So, but now it's really different. It's like very a lot of stores don't want to touch the standards and the moderns of the world
mm,
because like distribution and things have just the prices have gotten so
mm.
crazy and like pre-orders and stuff are just not there. So it's much easier to support the commander or the casual crowd than it is to like get stuck with product that
Yeah,
nobody
that's
wants.
what we found
And
post COVID. Sorry to keep bringing the COVID up.
yeah, well, I mean, the COVID is the transition marker for everything, right? Like
Yeah.
9/11 was.
Yeah, exactly. So it's you kind of define everything past that point. Yeah, that Pro Tour dream is dead. People are playing more Commander, and then so in store we tried to start getting a broader and broader card catalog that wasn't just the last four standard sets that were released,
Yeah,
and then we found that to work really well for us because you can sell old boosters to people who don't care what they open. They want to open something cool and trade it in for a you know,
yeah.
roaming throne or whatever. And so,
Well, it's like yeah, I mean, the thing I've noticed is like commander players, like, standard players, like, I need to have the like a playset of all the mythics and rares from the newest set.
mm,
Commander players, like, I need to have this one 40-cent common that came out 15 years
yeah,
ago. And it was in like Mercadian masks and it was terrible then, but it's the exact
yeah.
commander, it's exact card that'll make my commander take. And you're like, what are you
And
talking
so
about?
we like as soon as we started pivoting towards that and being like, we can troll collections and bulk stuff that people trade in and sell soul rings and command towers and arcane signets and like iridescent
Yeah.
wisps and like metamorphoses to like but like people need 20 copies of them, but then I think the biggest thing is that people see it as an investment that's not going to rotate, and so it's always going to be relevant, buy those cards and they be relevant for your play group. And then it doesn't feel so
you're
bad if
always
it
going to be able
gets
to use a command tower.
superseded by something.
Right. Like, I think that is one of the big driving forces of the format is that you can, like, I mean, yes, WotC will always put out more cards that are always going to be better than the cards you have. That's their job. But I can pull out a deck that I haven't modified since 2014 and still play it. And maybe I won't win, but it's not going to like do bad. It's still going to work. It's still a deck
and you
and
will
it's still
still enjoy it.
entirely legal. Yeah. It'll still do the thing I want it to do.
And
it's
like
fine.
I have a little case of my commander decks that I play with. I don't get to play as much as I would like because I'm doing 50 things at once. I don't know if you know what that's like.
Right. Yeah. Buddy. When I first met Josh Lee Kwai, I was like, "Hey man, you want to play Commander and stuff?" And he's like, "Dude, I am way too busy to play Commander. Like when you get into content and start making content and do this as your job, you don't have time to play the content.
Yeah.
Your job is to like every minute you're doing is working on this stuff." And as I got into, I was like, "That seems weird and foolish. You're just prioritizing wrong." Then I got into content. And now I know that no, playing is just not a thing we get to do. That's a thing for the fans.
Yeah, and it's like you need to get some thing from talk, but most of what I get is from talking to customers about it. They're building a CEDH deck or they're building a bunny deck with Bloomburrow or something, and you really just get to see all these different perspectives and theoretically think about what playing those decks would be like.
I mean, I play enough to make sure I know because I'm in the CAG. I need to know what's going on. But it's also like when you've been doing this a long enough time, if you're invested deeply enough into this, you can look and see and you can understand. Like I know what's going on. I don't need to like it's like somebody said the famous chef Thomas Keller, who runs the French Laundry, one of the best restaurants in the world, was like, "Look, dude, I don't need to stick my hand on a stove to know it's hot. You know, like I can look at this stuff and figure out what's going on because I've done this long enough. I have the reps and I have the understanding." I mean, yeah, sometimes you might need to walk me through whatever this weird ass obscure combo you've just come up with is. But generally speaking, I can look and I can be like, I get what you're doing. I don't like it, but I get what you're doing.
And so like I play with a few different groups. One who are like the guys we used to fly around and play Grand Prix with, and they have CEDH or like very competitive dragon decks. Like if they build a dragon deck, it's top tier. It's like you can win really quickly. But most of the games that I play are like casual pickup ones in store. And even if I play something that I've made that's like a little bit optimized so you don't get mana screwed, you just crush people and they don't feel good about it. So I had to like deck build poorly to make the games more fun. So you kind of build these weird stipulation decks. So I have two. I have one that is cards with normal names. So like Jared and Trevor the dragon and John. There is zero Chandler. Yeah, there's zero synergy in the deck. But then you just have to play with the random stuff.
Olivia.
Yeah, Olivia, exactly. There's no other vampire in the deck, just Olivia. But yeah, you can win with it. And it's like it's so fun to just have these weird.
I mean, you could put Edgar. That's a normal name.
Oh, Edgar is normal actually, but he costs $200. So
fair. Oh yeah, what is that like? Like, I know because like I was talking to like the Brazilians, and they're like, "Yeah, man, buying a random card costs us a year's salary," and I'm like, "That's absurd."
Oh,
but like, I know that Australian dollar is not great versus the USD. So like, what is like? Are singles just like prohibitively expensive over there? Or how does that work?
Weirdly aren't. We are in a bit of a funny place because Perth is a city that's built around the mining industry, or like the state is kind of built around the mining industry, and our minimum wage here is very high compared to other places in the world. Like I think even the US, and because like without tipping and all that sort of stuff, it's kind of buoyed up by the fact that everyone here, like the minimum wage here would be for someone that's 21, like $25 an hour, which is like 15 US an hour. Is that sounds about right? But when you're buying and selling cards, everyone just discusses it in CK, like Card Kingdom prices. So you go, oh, this is 15
Really?
CK. Yeah, it's really weird. And
15 CK?
Yeah, you go, it's 15 CK because it's $15 on Card Kingdom, and that's just the metric that everyone uses. You just pick a site, and everyone just started saying CK.
I mean, I guess that's
and then
fair.
5 years
It's just everybody agrees that this is the baseline.
That's the metric, yeah. So, but 5 years ago, you'd say 15 SCG, 15 SCG for that card, but then Star City Games updated their search bar, and it wasn't as easy to use anymore, and then everyone just went to Card Kingdom.
So wait, so when you say something like 15 CK, do you like translate that to Australian dollars, or do you just pay them $15?
It's so weird because people will go, I'll do 1-to-1 CK. So if you want to buy the card from them, you feel like you're getting a discount because you're buying it for, if it's $15 and you buy it.
Yeah, because like it's 100 Australian dollars is 65 US right now, which is kind of insane to me. That's huge.
So
that's a very
but it's so weird that no one thinks about it like that. You just go, if you're trading, you just trade 1-to-1 CK because it doesn't matter. That's like their weird currency.
Yeah.
And then, but then if you are selling cards, you go 1-to-1 CK, and they go, oh, 1-to-1, but you're like, yeah, but that's US dollars, so you're getting a deal. So it's like a weird. I think
parlay system.
And then in store we use like a binder post, which is like a software that you just aggregates TCG player prices and then converts it to Australian. And that's, the prices are pretty reasonable across the board. So yeah.
God, it's so weird. Like I've seen a lot of people using binder now, and it's just like, it feels like it's good for stores, it's good for retailers because it gives you a unified kind of database, but it kind of takes away a little bit of the fun that used to be of like arbitrage between LGSs, where you would go there and you'd find like a bargain on this side and then be able to go walk over there and sell it for a ton more over there.
The amount of people, like one time a guy came up to me from our bulk boxes, which we sell uncommons for 50 cents. And he's like, can I get these 30 Eternal Witness, please? And I was like, no, I'm sorry. I know how much they cost. I'm so sorry.
Whereas I was in Germany and I was buying, I was digging through the bulk bin at this random game store that we were at, and I found the Brute, which is German Die Bestie, and I was like, that is funny, I need to buy that. And it was a Legends version, so it was a foreign black border Legends card, but it was like, something like 30 euro cents or whatever they call them there. And I'm like, I don't have any currency in this country. I've got credit cards. And the dude looked at me just like, just take it. It's bulk garbage. I do not care. Have this random Legends card. And it has delighted me ever
since. Die, bestie. For free. Die, bestie.
Just like, throw it down there. It's like, I guess it's time for you to die, bestie. And all the Germans I showed it to in Amsterdam, did not understand the joke until I explained it to them, and then they were like,
"Die Beastie," I think you mean Die Beastie.
Yeah, it's like yes, or something. But then, like all the Americans were rolling on the floor.
So good. I'm still searching for a Spanish Mer-saya or Mia-saya because they're called Senor Mer in Spanish. I just want a Senor Mer.
Senor.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I want a farewell in Spanish. It's just adios.
Oh, that's so good.
So good.
And we wonder why they're like $300 online or something. It's just because they're called adios.
Yeah, well, that card is just absurd. Yeah. I hate that. Anyways, that is notwithstanding. Yeah, I love buying foreign cards. I mean, like, I think somebody gave me one of my chase cards at Amsterdam, which was a foil German Wormcoil Engine, which is Worm Spiral Machine.
Yeah,
it's just like,
I've been chasing one of those.
It's just the coolest name in the world. It's just like, let's go. This thing rules. God, I love that. Oh, do you guys have do you know how easy or hard it is to get like English Portal 3 Kingdoms cards in Australia? Because I know that was the only country it was released in English.
So
like, you guys are so lucky to be part of the APAC because you get all the weird promos. That
so that's another thing I was going to talk before about the distribution. We get all the APAC Chinese New Year promos, and then
they're so sick.
It's crazy.
Oh
so
my God,
we were giving that Euroco Year of the Tiger one, we were giving them away for Friday Night Magic for people just like turning up. We had so many people were like, "Oh, I don't want any more of those." That sort of thing. So there are some benefits to being in
So
the rich.
I'm just gonna slip you my address afterwards, and we're just gonna talk about
we can chat
these.
After we've bought them back from someone. Obviously, we're not sending them.
Yeah, right. Have you gotten a chance to go to any of the MagicCon? I know none of them are near you in any way, shape, or
So
form.
Dan, who's our store manager, went to Amsterdam, but we're still trying to. He went just like to buy and sell some stuff and go for a holiday. And he brought me back a really sweet football jersey I played in yesterday, actually, which was really cool.
Cool.
But the MagicCon thing, we're trying to. We're still so new to the social media thing, and I don't know how to swing that where it's like it's worth it for us to go because flights are so expensive and we're not making money directly because there's no monetization on TikTok in Australia as well. So we're not making any money from the social media stuff. It's just to drum up local interest, and then meeting all these people in America and everything. We don't have anything to sell to them. So,
you have there's no value to be gained from that, I guess.
Yeah. So we're trying to figure all that stuff out, which is coming in the next few months, hopefully. But we would love to go to Vegas and meet some people and chat to some people. And we know Gavin Verhey wants to.
Yeah, that is one of the challenges of like, if you're not a global store like like a Card Kingdom or whatever card market in Europe or something, it is hard to justify any of this stuff because you're like, having fans in Iowa does not help me in Perth.
Our number one comment is, "I wish I could ever visit this store." We go, "Cool."
Yeah, right. It's like, that's not remotely going to pay my bills, buddy. I know that feeling, but it's also just tough because it's like the internet makes everything global, even if it's meant to be local, and good things don't stay local; they get blown up. And that also means that sometimes you're just like, man, I wish I could get this random bespoke shoe, but the guy lives in a village in Indonesia and there's no way I'm ever going to get there. So here's a like. Yeah. And you're like, that guy did not need your like. He just needs someone from Yogyakarta to come buy his shoes. Exactly. Yeah, I guess that does make it like because I've talked to a lot of like, stores and stuff about these types of events, and they're always like, look, dude, these things cost us a ton of money and we're not selling anything because I'm not going to ship flats of cards across the ocean to sell them at like a loss in your currency. And it's like, that's true. But have you thought about my needs?
But I wanna though, so but I want that.
I'm like, didn't you think that I might want a Korean foil like fast land? Like, how dare you hold this?
Yeah, so that's the sort of thing with where we're at, and because even so Good Games is part of that franchise, as I said, but we can kind of run things however we like in store. But we're in very early days of speaking to them about what it's doing for the brand, like, internationally and nationally, all that sort of thing. So we're trying to figure that out. Maybe we'll all be able to figure out whether it's worth it for us to travel to these things and plug the brand or plug the US stores, because there's a Good Games in Indianapolis and there's a Good Games in Chicago.
Oh, dude, I saw the Good Games in Indianapolis because it was literally next to Gen Con.
Exactly.
I was like, oh, I remember walking by it because it was like a block away from the con. I was like, I should go pop in because it's a game store. And my wife's like, we're literally going to a Games Con. You don't need to go to a game store. And I'm like, fair, reasonable. But I was like, wow, it's called Good Games. I wonder if it's but then I'm like, Indianapolis in Australia. That's probably just a common name. But no, then you have an excuse to go to Gen Con at least.
Yeah, so
fly
that's
to the mother.
Yeah, I mean, but like that's the thing, is that it's in the early days. We need to figure out how to monetize it, weaponize it, however you want to say, this kind of weird
what
reach.
You do is you get all your forces together and then you put on your own Good Games Con and then invite folks like me to show up. Yeah. And then everybody in the world will show up there. Like, what we need is Wizards to really do. So like, Wizards needs to focus on APAC, on like, Anzac, and on like South America, because there's huge player bases there that are just like ignored entirely, and it's kind of ridiculous.
We felt that when they were running the Grand Prix and they started palming them off from being Wizards run to external company run, and then even when CFB were running them and they would palm them off to a local one as well, it was just like there were enough people there, but it just wasn't run to the level that it should be, and we have evidence of there being hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people who would turn up to these things, but it's just about that initial outlay of money, the little gamble to get people in and involved. And yeah, the people are there, and Magic is bigger than ever. Like, look at Lord of the Rings, look at Marvel next year. It's going to be bigger than ever, and why not capitalize on that sort of thing with big events?
Yeah. God knows we would love to be flown out to Australia to come and hang out and play, but it is prohibitively expensive and far. But that being notwithstanding, though, it's just like, so what has it been like with like Lord of the Rings and stuff? Have you noticed any uptick in like fandom and stuff? Like, what is from a ground floor level? What does it look like to have like UB stuff in Magic?
So people love to complain, obviously, because they are Magic players. But it turns out they complain about everything. But realistically, from where we're at, it's bigger than ever because of things like Lord of the Rings and even Bloomburrow hitting this completely different market of player. Bloomburrow is our best-selling standard set ever by like.
Bloomburrow is going to break records.
I think
just by being so adorable.
And I think that they shied away from doing stuff like that because of things like even Eldraine was like a little like it's got to be a bit creepy to make sure that guys like cis straight guys aren't
nerds
turned
like
off or whatever. But then when they went full bore and went, we're just going to make it as the most adorable set of all time,
furry set ever.
It's just like and it's one of the sets that I was the most hyped about ever, and I've been playing for 15 years now. Just because the art, the theme, everything is just like all together, and it doesn't matter whether it's standard powerhouse or modern powerhouse or whatever, and you just make some
it's
good commander decks and whatever.
It's Bloomburrow is to me like the biggest set since Neon Dynasty, and Neon Dynasty was the biggest set ever. Like in terms of just for me personally, just in terms of like this is the coolest set of all time. Bloomburrow is hitting every metric. I mean, it is so thematically like I've bought everything that they've put out for this set. Yeah. I've even on the arena cosmetics, all the everything, because it's just like I love Redwall. I love like Rats of Nim. I love all the animal-y type
huge
stories.
Redwall head as
like,
well.
Yeah, it's like this stuff rules, man. It's like, and yeah, the limited play could probably be better, but also who cares? I'm having a great time playing my.
I was literally just rats. Playing frogs on in draft just before I jumped on the call. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, like the lizard, like the fact that you can just sit there and say like, man, the raccoon deck rules, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's go raccoons. And that's why I'm really, really irritated that it's followed up by Duskmourn. Like,
but
way to just be like, no guys, it's okay, we're serious, really. Look, here's chainsaws. Like,
but I just love that, like we were saying, Magic's 500 different games at once. If you look at the release schedule of the last 2 months, it was Modern Horizons 3, which is for the most established player, twice as expensive as a normal booster. Chasing
God, Modern Horizons for you guys must be insanely expensive.
$700 for a collector box. 700, yeah. And we sold out. We sold out the opening.
Yeah, you did.
I don't know.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, but like that's for the enfranchised players. And then Assassin's Creed came out. That's for the casual players that like Assassin's Creed. But then you're trying to bring Assassin's Creed fans in. But then we sold out all of that as well because I ordered less of it because I didn't know how it was going to go. And then Bloomburrow is a completely different audience altogether. And then Duskmourn will be a completely different audience with some crossover from those other ones. So it's like, I think it's really good that they're pacing that stuff out. Yeah, because Bloomburrow, the goodwill from Bloomburrow is going to last for a year plus. People will still be buying it.
They knew there were people last year. I was in conversation with random Wizard folks, and one of them was talking to the others like, man, if Bloomborough hadn't come out, my set would be the best selling set of this year. And I'm like, this is back when MKM was out. I'm like, oh, you guys already think Bloomborough is going to be the biggest hit?
They knew.
Like,
they knew.
That set is not coming out for 8 months, and people cannot stop talking about the 2 previews we made. That set is going to be blowing the walls off, and it turns out it did. It turns out it just friggin' rules. It's like so
it's
good.
Just it's the most perfect Magic set ever.
So
I'm making a master set of like one of every single card just to put in a binder and look at because I just love the vibe of it so much. And I've never been possessed to do that. Oh, you did it with Neon Dynasty? Great, that's so good. That was a great set.
Yeah, because it's just like looking at the alt art for Neon Dynasty, you're like, God, these are so pretty. So it's like same way with Bloomborough. You just look at it, you're like, man, they got Omar Ryan back to do like these random commons, and they're so gorgeous. I don't even care. Yeah, man. But like, if you wanted to sum up the Magic scene over there, what is it like? Like, do you still think like over here we've seen that there's been a lot of like tepidness in the stores, especially of like people are like, oh, Commander's getting too fast, or oh, the other format sucks, so I don't want to play anymore. What is it like in your community? Is like, are people still jonesing for this? Are they excited?
So
who plays?
Sorry, who plays?
Yeah, who is playing? Like, do you guys still have like robust Commander nights?
Yeah, so those Wednesdays and Friday nights that I talked about, they have been more and more and more popular, and but I think we are focusing on, not to fully blow our own horn, but we've been focusing on making it more friendly and welcoming and inviting for people. And then Dan, the manager, messaged us in the group chat and said there are 18 women playing Commander tonight in store on a Friday.
Yeah, let's go.
Is like, I think, a state record, if not, it's like that's
amazing, and I love that.
Like, I know that they always quote that statistic that it's 50-50 players, but like realistically, like it's not.
It's not.
The closer and closer we get to that, I think it just means that you have such a wider variety of people playing, and they don't care what the speed of the format is or whether their deck is an 8 or a 6 out of 10. And it's not just because they're casual, it's just because the play groups don't get in that arms race for that, because you want it to be a nice community, like fun, like a board game type of experience.
Yeah, because if you treat it like a social night, like a board game or something, it doesn't matter who's winning. I mean, yeah, you might care because you're like, I beat my buddy or whatever. But it's like the grand scheme is more like, did you enjoy the few hours that you spent with your friends just hanging out over cards?
And that social contract thing where someone combos off with something and everyone goes, boo, like, you ruined the game. Like, that's better. Like, you kind of ruined everyone's fun by going off. But like, you would do that if you played Monopoly and you did that thing where you hoard all the houses. You can do that if you want, but you don't want to do that.
Yes. But also, it's like, I like that groups can kind of just pull. I mean, I like that there's enough of a cachet of being able to say like, hey man, I would really rather you didn't play that so we could do something else, or can you take that back so we could do this differently? And people are fine with it because it
doesn't matter. The stakes are so low. Yeah, exactly. It's just for fun.
It's like literally the only reward is getting to play with these people again, right? Like, that's it. Like, if you were a jackass, they won't invite you back. If you aren't, they will. Play like you like. The slogan I like to use a lot is play like you want to be invited back. Right? Like, that's a goal. You just like don't be a tool, man. Just chill and relax.
So you want to insane how many people you play against, and that is not their number one rule. It's just they got to flex on you and tell you how they could have. If you win, they tell you how they could have beaten you. Or if they won, they're really smug about it, and you're like, "Well, I never want to play with you ever again. What was your goal?" Yeah. So yeah, it's
like, great, congrats. But now what are you going to do? Sitting by yourself in the corner and nobody to play with?
We actually have a script for a video that we wrote, that Ricky wrote this week, which is just that. It's someone invites you to play a game. They tell you enough of the rules to play, but not enough to win. And then they crush you. And then at the end they go, yeah, I'm so great. And then they get a medal that says annoying idiot.
It's just like, dude, if you win to the point that you drove everyone else off, did you really win?
Some people would say yes.
You are the king of the mountain. Congratulations. We're going to keep playing. Like there was a time with I was playing with Sheldon in Reno, and me, Sheldon, another friend of ours, and then a fourth fan who's just a random person. And that fan comes off, and they like basically set up this infinite combo on like turn 4 and just win clearly and utterly destroy us. And Sheldon just gives him this baleful stare, and he just looks at him and is like, "Well, congratulations, you won. The rest of us are going to continue playing now. So good luck.
Thanks.
Enjoy yourself
Bye.
and have a great rest of your show." And it was just like, just straight up pulled the rug out, just said like, we had a discussion beforehand that this wasn't going to happen. You chose not to respect that. Congrats, you won.
It's
bye.
And like, if you're playing with the guy who invented this format and you don't understand the format, that is something else.
It's just like, dude, who are you? Like, I remember though, like again, like going back, early conversation with Josh Lee, I'm like, so like, what's it like when you play against people? It's like everybody wants to beat the crap out of me because they want to go home to their friends and say like, I beat Josh. And I'm like, and I didn't understand that until I started playing after I became somebody and started playing with people at these shows, and I would just be getting trounced. And then I realized, I'm like, oh, my job is to sit here and give you a story to tell back home. And I'm like, once I accepted that, then it became different. And it's like, okay, fine, I know what I'm here for.
Yeah, you can be
but now
like
I
a
can't even sit
fun
and play games, so
punching
it doesn't
bag for
matter.
them, but that's not the most fun for you. But like, that's gonna.
Yeah, it's like one at least if you understand it, then you can at least bend it to enjoy yourself and give them a story to tell, right? Like make it worth their time. But it's if you don't have that self-awareness, then you're just like, why are people just beating me up all the time? I don't want to play. It's not fun. Anyways. Do you watch any Bluey?
I get it on TikTok, but I don't watch full episodes. I don't have any young young kids in my immediate family.
I'm a dad, so it's like that is literally my favorite show in like my family loves that show. So we've learned a lot about Australian culture.
Oh, that's so good.
But yeah, it's like they very deliberately were like, we want to make a kids show and we are not going to Americanize it at all. So deal. And suddenly my kid's like, hey, hey, Papa, can we have brekkie? And I'm like, what the hell's a brekkie?
Yeah. Or even just doing the Australian accent. I think it's made everyone in the world better at doing the Australian accent. Like, airport? I don't want to go to the airport.
100%.
We say that all the
time. The one thing I will just say is I appreciate there's an episode where Bluey goes with her sisters to watch a children's movie. And dad's going with them. And the children's movie has got the same voice actors who are doing the normal show, but they're all doing American accents
so
because every goddamn movie is with an American voice actor. And it's just like, that was like the kind of subtle joke that like my wife and I got, but everybody else is just like, whatever. And I'm just like, oh, that is cheeky as
It's
hell.
so good. There is a very weird cultural thing in Australia where if you're doing a bit, you deliver the punchline in an American accent because it's like it's funnier because that's what happens in sitcoms and movies and stuff. But you go, I can't think of an example, but just
I guess that's funny to think about.
Very strange.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that sounds very provincial and stupid, but like, how much do you interact with like content that's made in the States or in other countries like that, or do you guys have like your own local scene and stuff?
That is an interesting thing about us making content, because I have no idea how big we are on the global scale, because no one talks about. There's not like there's the Professor, there's Covert Go Blue, there's like people that stream and they're like famous for streaming, but in terms of magic content creators, there's not heaps. And so in terms of what we consume, it's just like whatever you can.
Same thing everybody else does.
Whatever you can find, because like a majority of the content is American. You consume. I listen to Limited Resources and Lords of Limited and some other like draft, because that's the main format that I play. But in terms of skits and stuff, everyone knows about the Professor and Loading Ready Run.
Well, yeah.
But past that, I don't know. It's And
'Cause
Riley
it was
Knight
interesting for
is a
me.
big export as well,
Yeah.
but it's like, Magic national treasure.
Yeah, well, Riley is amazing. We love
Yeah.
him. Because I was in Amsterdam and I was talking to a bunch of like locals there, and they were like, "We're so excited! All you Americans came here to the con because we never get a chance to meet you. You're like rock stars." I'm like, "Don't you have your own content?" He's like, "We're on the same internet you are, and
That's
literally all the
it, yeah.
content makers are American." And I'm like, I didn't want to make that assumption because that's a very America centric thing, and that would be something that I, as an American, would do. But it turns out, no, that's actually true. We are
No, that
really
is.
just the global kind of like the black hole of magic content. Just all of it comes here.
Have you played much
And like,
Civilization, the board game? Not the board game, the video game. Sorry.
so Civilization is literally my favorite game of all
there you
time.
go. You know when you win a cultural victory in 5 or 6, and they go,
Yeah,
the whole world is listening to your rock and roll music and wearing your blue jeans.
right.
That's
Yes.
what it's like there with the internet. It's like Hollywood and the TikTok and just the way that the
Yeah.
algorithms work. There's great Australian content, but like it's in with hundreds and hundreds of millions of American content creators, and Americans people are so good at doing that it's actually kind of hinders.
Our export is
The export
ourselves.
is media, like it is,
Yeah.
culture, and like I always think of that Civilization quote because it's just the cultural juggernaut of it is the hardest. I think that's the new
Yeah.
like power.
It's wild. It's like when I was watching the on New Year's in America, we have a lot of like, variety shows and stuff of people playing music and stuff. And one of them was like BTS playing live from Disneyland on the most big mainstream New Year's Eve show in America. And I'm like, there are kids in Kansas who are singing along to every Korean word in BTS. And I'm like, that is cultural juggernaut right there. That is
Yeah.
nutters. But I'm like, then I think about the fact that I'm like, what do I listen to? I listen to friggin' Triple J, the Australian radio station,
So good.
because they have this amazing like a version show that they put on YouTube where they have like all these famous stars do covers of other songs. And I watch them religiously for a decade now because it's some of the coolest stuff on YouTube. And now I'm like super hip on random local Adelaide, punk rock bands or whatever. And it's just like you sit there and it's like, what the, I mean, mind you, I discovered my favorite musician of the modern era, this chick named Aurora, because she did a Massive Attack cover on Triple
that's
J.
such
And I'm
a
like,
good cover. Yeah,
this is a Norwegian pop star covering a British, trip hop band in Australia that I in San Francisco, I'm totally like, hell yeah, let's
so
go.
good. Oh, I assume you saw the Wiggles covering Tame Impala?
Oh
which
my
is
God.
just,
I listened to that. I listened to that
and
so much.
It won the hottest
like Tame
100.
Impala.
Like a kid's band.
It's such a good song, though. It's such a friggin' good cover. And I'm like, look, I'm a dad. I used to listen to the Wiggles just because I had a 3-year-old, right? Like, not for fun, but because that's what children listen to. But like listening to them sing friggin' the Tame Impala song was like the sickest thing
and they're
ever.
such good instrumentalists. They're doing the
fun.
weird time signature like guitar riff and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so good.
It turns out that when you're just a good musician, you can make anything.
Oh man, but that's so funny that Triple J is like a cultural touchstone for indie music, because here it's like all because I play in some bands in the local scene here as well, and that's all anyone is trying to do is get played on Triple J. If you get played on Triple J, you're like, oh my God, it's huge.
Dude, one of my favorite bands is this dude named Winston Surfshirt or some crap like that. He's a dude from Sydney who does like weird, funky, like just almost pseudo R&B style, but it's just like I just picked him up because he did a cover of 50 Cent on Triple J, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just listen to this dude for like days now, and that's like super. And like, I'm like, oh, where are you touring? And he's like, I'm touring all the best bars in Sydney, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm literally never gonna see you or buy any of your stuff, but
well, that's another reason to come
so I'll come
to Australia.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of Indians who live there, so I'd totally go. It just reminds me of the old days of Napster in the early 2000s when I would be getting like Lithuanian punk rock music from someone's random hard drive. Like, what the hell does this mean? I have no idea. Anyways, I will send you this. I just recently discovered this band called Carpe, which is this Norwegian rap group run by an Indian dude and a half Egyptian, half Norwegian
Oh
dude,
wow!
who are the number one act in Norway right now. Because I heard them on a Pakistani YouTube channel called Coke
Yeah.
Studio, where they get folk fusion music, and it's like, I don't know what just happened, but this is now my
Oh,
favorite band in the world, and I'm
that is
really
so
confused.
cool. I will do a shameless
Yeah,
plug for one of my bands who our singer
please.
is Filipino Australian, and we play like weird alt country indie pub rock.
I'm in. I'm
So it
sold.
sounds up your alley. We've been played on Triple J a little bit, and then we were on a Spotify country chill playlist for a little while. So that was cool.
I was going to ask you about that drum set behind you because I'm like,
Oh,
oh, I like drums.
and then the other band I play in, yeah, we got a biggest gig of our band life this Saturday. We're playing at one of like a stage in Perth that I've seen literally some of my favorite acts ever play on the same stage, and I get to play on it on Saturday. So I'm really excited for that.
That is the cool. To bring that back to Magic, I remember during Kaladesh pre-release, they did it at PAX in Seattle where they had not pre-release but like the preview season, and it was in the big fancy theater in Seattle. And I met with Allison Lurs, who was at the time the community manager and like also ended up writing a lot of story and stuff. And we were hanging out and talking, and she's like, "Dude, I've grown up in this area. I've seen that theater from afar. I've watched a million shows there. To be able to perform there myself as like doing magic stuff, but just to be able to perform on this stage that I've always wanted to is the coolest thing in the world." So I totally
Yeah,
get that, and that's
it's
sweet.
really great when. Oh, sorry, bringing it back to before we tangented. That's one of the best things about being in Australia and being in Perth, especially, which is that all of the scenes and culture are still. It feels very new, and things aren't as set in stone here as they are in, I don't know, the UK and Europe, and in that you can make tangible changes to your environment. Because before, like we said, in 2009 there was one store, maybe two stores that sold magic in the whole of Perth, and like I got to directly influence that. Like I don't think there's many places in the world where things aren't established already, and you can like make really good
That's
changes. Yeah.
awesome. That's sweet, man. Yeah, because that's awesome. Yeah, no, I was just looking at that drum set of yours, and I was like thinking of the fact that one of my friends who I play magic with, a dude named Andrew Baird, who is the drummer for a metal band called All Shall Perish, and was before the drummer for a band called Fallujah. And really, the first interview I had on this show, if you go back to
Oh,
episode
cool. I
literally
will.
one, uh, yeah, but he's like a heavy metal drummer and goes and tours the world and plays magic with me. And I remember John from the Mountain Goats came over to my house one day to play magic because
What?
he was in time. He was okay, so he was a fan of mine on Twitter because of my Hindu
Oh
threads or
wow.
whatever. And I was like, tangentially, I knew who the Mountain Goats were. I'm like, and he's like, "Yo, I'm coming to San Francisco for a show. You want to come?" I'm like, "I'd love to come to your show, sure, whatever." And I'm like, "Hey, you want to play some
That's
magic before?" Because I'm just ambiently asking.
that's
He's like, "Yeah, you can just
insane.
pick me up at my hotel and you come to my house." And I'm like, yeah, casually. I'm like, oh yeah, my friend Andrew's there. He's a musician. He's from the band Fallujah. And he's like, you have the drummer from Fallujah. I love them. I'm like, why do you know death metal? He's like, do you think I just listen to singer
Yeah.
songwriters all day? What do you think? But and that's when I knew my life was weird. When I'm sitting in my kitchen playing with two touring musicians who have gigantic fandoms and literal,
And
actual
they're
recording
fans of
contracts and have
you.
been doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. So
Yeah.
here's my Declan play.
That is incredible.
It was
You played Magic with
this
John
this
from the Mountain Goats. That's
multiple times in my house.
I will say
We're
the
friends.
weirdest thing that's happened as because of this social media stuff is I got an email out of the blue from Post Malone's Australian management
What the hell?
saying, "Would you like to do a
What?
backstage thing if we can make it work when you're there?" He's big into the magic stuff at the moment, and that's really blowing up. And we're like, I mean, yeah. They were like, he might come to the
Yeah,
store, or you
whatever.
could do backstage or something. And we sent them some spec scripts, but I think it never got through to the right people at the right time, so nothing happened. But that was
Yeah,
absurd.
but they reached out
Yeah,
at
they reached out to
all.
us. Like I was like, okay,
And you're like, yes,
we
we'll figure out
will.
what that is after.
Yeah.
Yes, whatever you want.
Oh, that was.
Oh man, this has been a delight, man. Thank you so much for joining me. Like, again, you guys, I just love your little skits. They make me so happy, and I wish you and your store all the best. I hope that Wizards brings a Magic Con to your time zone at some point.
I think we're going to come to some Magic Cons over the next year, regardless of whether it's worth it for us, just to see, like, test the waters. Yeah. So I would love to. And
dude, they're like nothing you've ever seen. But also, it was really funny to see all the people who I know from Magic Cons going to Gen Con for the first time, and them being like, Magic Con is like the bathroom line at Gen Con. It is tiny compared. I'm like, dude, there could be 60 Magic Cons and not hit the Gen Con size. Gen Con had 80,000 people.
Oh my God. That's wild.
They have, this year, for the first time ever I saw, like, I've been going to Gen Con off and on for 20 years, and this time they had, and they did it last year too, the Indianapolis Colts football stadium, which is the size of a very large football stadium, big enough to hold 100,000 people or whatever it is. They had taken the whole thing over, put like flooring on it, and they had the open games play area where you could go and check out games from their game library on the football field. Literally, they were like, we have no room in the con hall, so we're taking the stadium.
Wow.
And it was just like tens of thousands of people playing Splendor and Catan and whatever the hell. And I'm like,
that's my number one, like, dream con, and Essen, because I love Euro games and stuff as well.
I want to go to Essen real badly. But dude, I'm telling you, Gen Con, if you get a chance, it is worth whatever price you got to pay to be able to fly in one day, just because there's like nothing you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, okay. We're going to have to make it happen. We are very, very awkwardly trying to swing Vegas in 2 months, but that's going to be, a bit last minute. But
Vegas is going to be awesome, and you should do it just because it'll be fun. Just be aware that it's, you're in the desert part of Australia. You know how hot it gets. It gets 40-something degrees over there, too. It'll be.
I actually went in 2013 and played the first modern Masters Grand Prix there. In Vegas.
Oh, so then
Yeah, I left my
misery of Vegas in summertime.
I left my cards in the car for half an hour, and they melted the plastic pages onto the cards.
I remember I had one that was just a boat afterwards.
It's like 52 degrees or something.
You're like, dude, this year SCG called me in for SCG Con Vegas, and it was in the middle of like late June, early July or something, and it was just like 117 degrees outside, which is something like the
tires in your car explode.
50s.
If
that is literally like your clothes are melting to your skin. Yeah, it's like winter for you right now, and
it is, which means it's 20 degrees Celsius, so it's like pretty.
I guess it's fine.
It's fine.
You're fine. You'll survive. Anyways, my friend, thank you so much for joining me.
So much
it's been a real delight.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Like, wow, we went over half an hour overtime, and I didn't even notice.
I said we would go on some tangents. I think we have a lot of similarities there.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot of not magic in the show. But this is the chance for you to plug whoever you want to plug, or tell us how people can find you, or where they can find your stuff, or your band. You didn't tell your band name.
So the band, the alt country one, is called Jocelyn's Baby, and we're on Spotify and Apple Music and all those good ones. And then the one that I'm playing with on the weekend, I play bass in Jocelyn's Baby, and I play drums for Bribes, which is we got a self-titled album on Spotify as well.
Nice.
And so come to Radiothon on Saturday, I guess, at the record bar if you live in
Saturday 3 months ago. When
look back at the footage. And then, Good Games Morley on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we're going to start the YouTube up soon as well. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm telling you guys, like, their sketches are absolutely hilarious, just delights, and they're like 5 seconds long, so you can watch it. Shut up and watch. You'll be fine. Like, I know Gavin freaking loves you guys, and I was so happy to see you guys get a preview card this time. It was so cool. I think that was
the biggest thing for me when we got an official Wizards preview card. I was like, oh, we've achieved my dreams. My magic dreams.
I don't know. There was like a sexy Gavin Verhey cosplay on like one of your like browsers, and I was just like, "This is the funniest goddamn thing I've ever seen in my life." Oh my god. Anyways, as always, my friends, you can find me at Gearboard Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at YouTube every Tuesday. Thanks to my editor Dan, and you can see me on Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic, where me and Wheeler talk about every single set in the history of Magic, one at a time eventually, or maybe like one over the course of 3 episodes because we talk a lot. And the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, where me and my friend John talk about the Chronicles of Dragonlance. Which is also having a sudden resurgence, and I'm very excited about. But in any case, my friends, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.